Another episode of The Bad Batch is out, and it's everything we could have hoped for. Per usual, there will be spoilers for the episode in this video, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, go do so. That's an order, trooper. When the Clone Wars ended, the Confederacy of Independent Systems was totally dismantled by the victorious Galactic Empire. Its corporate sponsors were liquidated, its member worlds were subjugated, and its droid army became Imperial property. As we saw in this week's Bad Batch episode, the Empire melted down a whole lot of it, as you would expect them to do. But as Echo mentioned early in the episode, the Empire actually made use of some of those droids as well. Today, we're going to be looking at how the Empire dealt with the droid army and analysing which droids the Empire kept using and which were too dangerous to be left alive.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Technically speaking, the Clone Wars ended when the Separatist Council issued a shutdown command to the CIS droid army, shortly before Darth Vader murdered them all. On planets where Separatist forces were still uncontested, the droids marched back to their ships and folded themselves back into their racks, while those engaged in the fighting were just shut down on the spot and simply collapsed. Many of the droids in the latter group were summarily destroyed by victorious Republic forces in celebration, and their parts were sent off to be melted down. There's a hint of irony in the fact that destroyed or damaged battle droids met pretty much the exact same fate under the Empire as they would have under the Confederacy. When the Separatists won battles, they would send out worker drones to gather up all of the droid parts scattered all over the battlefield. These parts were either used to rebuild droids or melted down to be used to make new droids. Under the Empire, all of the damaged Separatist droids were met with the latter fate: Reclamation. In a galaxy that, unfortunately, treated droids as tools instead of the sentient beings they were, Reclamation was a common fate for droids. Major droid-making worlds, like Telti and Mechas 3, featured large droid reclamation facilities, as did other worlds like Gindyne and, as we saw in the Bad Batch, Corellia. At these facilities, droids were melted down and turned into new droids, either units of the same model or new units. Occasionally, these facilities would just melt them down and use the scrap for something completely different. That latter scenario is likely what we saw in the Bad Batch. As we saw in Solo, Corellia was a major producer of Star Destroyers in canon, and it's possible that those droids were being melted down to provide metal for that. However, that's just what happened to the damaged droids. As mentioned earlier, most of the Separatist droid army went back to their landing craft when ordered to shut down. There were also billions of battle droids sitting in warehouses that had never been activated. Let's not forget that the Separatist droid army was the biggest army in the history of the entire galaxy. The Empire had way more hardware to deal with than just the broken droids. The first thing the Empire did with these droids was lay claim to them. After the fighting stopped, all kinds of underworld types descended on droid landers and warehouses, hoping to claim the droids to either sell or use as personal soldiers. More dangerously, Separatist holdout groups regularly tried to reactivate lost droid armies, making it a high priority of the Empire to seize all those warehouses as soon as possible. Those of you who remember the classic Battlefront 2 campaign can probably remember what happens when former Separatists got their hands on droid warehouses, as exemplified by Guise or Delso. Understandably, the Empire wanted as few cases like that as possible. As Echo mentioned, the Empire put many of its new droids to use. During the earliest days of the New Order, the Empire needed as many soldiers as it could get to force its rule on the galaxy, and the clone troopers it had just weren't enough. Recruited armies would soon fix this problem, at first in the Imperial Army and then in the Stormtrooper Corps. However, it's likely that the Empire also used repurposed droid armies as a stopgap while they got the recruitment system up and running, padding out the ranks of the former Grand Army of the Republic. This is probably what Echo was talking about when he mentioned the Empire using battle droids. From the context of the episode, we could also surmise that these droid forces were mostly deployed against nascent insurgent groups like Saw Gerrera's partisans. In Legends, quite a few Separatist droid models were permanently integrated into the Imperial military after the rise of the Empire. Most notably, these included the Droideka and the DSD-1 Dwarf Spider Droid, both of which served with the Stormtrooper Corps. We don't know about the Spider Droid, but the Droideka actually had the same fate in canon, with both rebel groups and some Imperial squadrons making use of the deadly droids. Those droids requisitioned by the Imperial military were probably the most decommissioned before the Galactic Civil War, as the Empire didn't really need them that much, especially as the numbers of recruits began to swell. Others likely continued to see use up until the Empire's fall, as was the case in Legends. But while the droid army was certainly useful for the Empire, the New Order didn't really need the whole thing. There was only a certain extent to which they could use droids as a military force, since most Imperial citizens associated the droids with separatism, which Imperial propaganda was constantly using as a boogeyman. If the Empire just made the whole CIS droid army another part of the Imperial military, they risked falling victim to their own propaganda and alienating the galactic citizenry. Thus, they were only really able to use the droids on remote, contested worlds and the most backwater of backwater garrisons. This left the Empire with a pretty major question. What the heck were they going to do with all those droids? Though this might not seem important, it was actually a pretty serious concern. Even deactivated and collecting dust in warehouses, these droids were highly dangerous. For all their faults, battle droids were quite effective, and the Imperial military had enough work to do putting an end to the last traces of freedom in the galaxy without having to fight droid armies as well. Especially in its early years, the Empire wasn't in as stable a position as it would have liked the galaxy to believe. One good threat, like a bunch of reactivated old droid armies, would have put a lot of strain on the Empire's efforts to subjugate the galaxy, which were crucial in ensuring continued Imperial rule. Essentially, the military needed to be able to focus on oppressing Imperial citizens so that they wouldn't rise up against the Empire. If they went off to fight battle droids instead, it would have posed a grave risk to Imperial stability. Additionally, let's not forget the main focus of last night's episode, the tactical droids. We tend to give tactical droids a lot of flack on this channel, but in fairness, they were actually effective commanders a fair bit of the time, and as mentioned in the episode, they got better as the war went on.
The more tactical droids fought, the more they learned.
By the end of the Clone Wars, many tactical droids had become frighteningly competent, and they came to pose a serious threat to Republic forces. Thus, the Empire considered it imperative that all tactical droids be found and destroyed, for 3 reasons. Firstly, tactical droids could be used to take over droid armies, which could have disastrous results for Imperial forces making use of the battle droids. Secondly, tactical droids could have provided valuable insight on how to defeat said Imperial droids. Most importantly, they could have provided insight on how to defeat Imperial clone stormtrooper armies, since those tactical droids obviously had a lot of experience battling clones. In the Empire's view, those droids were too dangerous to be left alive, and the same was true for most of the droids they had no use for. Droids that were kept in warehouses were always a potential threat, since, as we mentioned earlier, there were always underworld types stealing and reactivating them. The more battle droids there were out in the galaxy, the greater the chance was that the rebels or separatists would reactivate an army or 2 of them and give the Empire some real trouble. The solution, of course, was to scrap the droids the Empire had no use for. The scrap could have been put to use making new droids or any number of new pieces of equipment. It's a fair bet that the Empire didn't care which, so long as the droids were gone. So, that's what happened to the droid army after the Clone Wars. But what do you think? Did you like this week's episode? It was definitely the best so far in our opinion, and even the Martez sisters weren't that annoying. So feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.